This is episode 29 in Creative Love Radio. And if you ever felt emotionally triggered in life, which I'm sure you have, and wondered, how do I deal with these emotions? How do I work with my mind? This is the episode for you, where we're going to talk about things that come up in dating, relationships, or even building your business, and how to work with your mind so you can get what you really want. Welcome to Creative Love Radio with Debbie and Dr. Rob. We are redefining relationships to guide you to greater love, more success, and living your purpose through the latest research in neuroscience, Jungian psychology, and Eastern wisdom. Get ready for another inspirational episode of Creative Love Radio. All right, Rob, episode 29.
Finally here.
Finally here. We're going to talk about triggers.
All right, my favorite.
Have you ever been triggered before? Do I trigger you?
Not me. I've never been triggered.
Really? Okay. Well, it's very common to be a human being. What are triggers anyway? What are they really designed for us to see where we are in life, right? They're kind of like a sign.
They're there to annoy us. No. It depends on what we do with them, right? We can either get frustrated, annoyed, buy into the trigger and really get upset and throw a tantrum, throw a hissy fit. Or we can work with them and learn from them, because it's really an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, it's an opportunity to master the mind.
And so we're going to talk about when you're emotionally triggered and what type of triggers that we have and where our mind takes us off the wrong track, and how to reset the mind and really focus on what we really want, so we're not caught up in it and feeling down or feeling frustrated. Before we begin, though, with the topic today, I want to remind you to please get your love readiness test. Take this test. Go to loveattractiontest.com and take this test. It's about 3 or 4 questions. I think it's 4 questions. And what will happen is you'll see what's going on with you and see how ready you are for true love. And you're going to learn just by answering the questions a little bit more about yourself and what's going on in your love life. So please go to loveattractiontest.com. And we totally invite you to take those results and have a consultation with our lead coach, Teresa, and she'll take you through the test, and she'll give you some really great insights to what's going on with your mind and give you some next steps to take to find that great love that you truly want. Another announcement, we have our live event in New York.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's coming up.
In April.
And we love New York. Mm-hmm. More than Debbie, but...
Well, I grew up around that area, so it's like home to me. But yeah, we're doing a live event called Creative Love Live. And it's an intimate event. We rented this loft in Soho, which is really a beautiful place with a rooftop. And we're going to have breaks outside. And it's just going to be an incredible experience. A very small event. This is not a big event. It's very small and intimate. And it's April 21st and 22nd. If you're interested, let us know. Contact us, and we will give you all the details. Or you can go to our website, debbieandrob.com, and click on the events tab and find out more. Yes, springtime. And actually, it's really interesting because it'll be our 6-year anniversary of working together. And it is
where it all began.
Where it all began. And it's the part of the place that we had our very first event together.
Yeah, it's a great little place.
So it's going to be a special time. We're going to celebrate our 6-year anniversary being business partners. And
go
starting
up on
off
the rooftop
this journey.
And howl at the moon.
Well, I don't know if we'll howl at the moon.
Okay.
Maybe you can. All right. Well, let's get into it, Rob. What are these triggers about? Like, first of all, people don't know what emotional trigger is. What is that?
Well, emotional triggers are when you get upset. Something sparks that annoying feeling that you want to lash out, that you want to speak your mind, you want to go into a rant about how life is unfair and how mistreated you've been, all that good stuff, right? We've all been there.
It's kind of like a mental storm. You know, everything's peaceful, and then the rainstorm comes in, and it feels like it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it has that sticky quality, right? That okay, you say, I'm gonna, forget about this. I'm gonna go for a drive or something, and your mind keeps going back to it. And I should have said
Stop
this,
it.
and how dare they say that to me, and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And the mind can't get rid of it. It just it wants to focus on it. It wants to replay it over and over and think of different scenarios for it. That's a really good trigger. They're juicy.
So we're going to talk about the types of assumptions that drive the trigger, and then how to work with them so you're not just pushing it away or putting a pretty picture on. A lot of people say, just make it positive or rationalize it away. But we don't want to just keep pushing it away. We want to use it as an opportunity for growth. Yeah,
in psychology, they talk about cognitive distortions. The Buddhists talk about working with virtuous objects. In coaching, we might talk about gremlins or some crazy stuff.
The dragons.
Yeah. But it's all the same ideas. How do we work with our mind? What do we do once we're triggered? Is there any way to, learn from this experience, or are we just doomed to repeat the same patterns over and over?
So let's start with the first one.
Yeah. So
I never assume this at all, ever.
Yeah, so if we observe our mind, which is really the first step, is you have to be able to observe your mind and understand what's going on when I'm triggered. Mm-hmm. Where is it coming from, and what am I looking at? Mm-hmm. What am I looking for? So some of these assumptions, let's say, of the mind are really what we want to look at. Now, don't get into trying to fix them yet and trying to get back to normal or to feeling good and loving everyone and all that good stuff. Not yet. Mm-hmm. What we want to do first is be a good observer of your own mind. Can I observe what's happening here? What's coming up? These are some of the cognitive distortions or misassumptions or assumptions that we make about our mind. Let's say typically. Mm-hmm. So the number one is taking things personally.
I never do that. Ever.
We take it personally, meaning, we think life is out to get us. Mm-hmm. And then when there's other people involved, obviously we know they're out to get us. Mm-hmm. We take it very personally instead of thinking it through and saying, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe
they meant to hurt me.
Yeah, maybe it's hemorrhoids. You never know what this other person is experiencing.
They should be nice to me, right?
Yeah.
Why aren't they nice? And then another thing, too, with personally is just very simple dating example of that someone doesn't respond or someone's not interested, that you take it personally, that you think you did something wrong to scare them away. And of course, those darn stupid dating tips will tell you, you should act this way, and this is what guys want, and this is what women want. And if you break the rules, then you did it wrong. And that's really we get caught up in that. We hear these stupid ideas that there's a proper behavior for something, and then we think we did it wrong.
The second one is the black and white polarized thinking, meaning it's got to be my way or the highway, or it's got to be a certain way or it's wrong. That's a common distortion that we have in our mind.
Isn't it like all good or all bad too?
All good or all bad, all right and all wrong. And we know that life is not that way. It's usually a gray area that we're dealing with. And that's one of the things we have to observe. And we'll talk about how we work with these things down the line. But,
okay.
The third one is mind reading, that we expect the other person to read our mind, meaning why didn't they do what I expected them to do when you never said anything?
Yeah.
You just expect them to,
They should know better.
They should know. If I have to ask, then what's the point?
Or another way of mind reading is you're assuming what the other person is thinking. Like you're saying, oh, they're thinking this and they're thinking that.
It goes
they're thinking
both ways.
Bad of me, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a two-way. It's a
two-way street.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The fourth one is labeling people on their behavior, meaning, if they're having a bad day and you observe it or you experience it, then you just peg them as that's a terrible person. They're always angry.
Or a guy who cheats on you, or someone who breaks up with you. They're just a terrible person that is just bad.
Well, if they do that, yeah, they're bad.
Well, okay, maybe not cheating on you, but like people that whatever one little thing they do or one thing they do, you make an assumption of that's labeling them.
It does not define him.
Yeah, it just does not. One behavior doesn't define a whole person.
Yeah. The next one is
overgeneralization.
Overgeneralization. Overgeneralization just means that we paint with a broad paintbrush everything. So if I stub my toe on the way out of the house, I'm going to say it's going to be a terrible day. Mm-hmm. I just know it. And because I had that little thing, I'm expecting everything to go wrong. That's and that's an overgeneralization of overgeneralization.
Well, can I tell you another one?
Please.
Please. What about all men are jerks?
Yeah.
Or all women are looking for a rich guy, all men over a certain age are this way, or all men under a certain age are this way. All women over 40 are this way. A lot of people think, they're assuming that someone a certain age or a certain look or even a certain race are a certain way. And that would be overgeneralization.
Yep. And then my favorite one.
This is yours, Rob.
Catastrophizing.
You're always catastrophizing.
Meaning if I burnt my toast in the morning, it's the end of the world. I might as well go home and give up.
Or my boss gave me a bad review, and so it's just the end of the world. Or this person broke up with me, or this relationship didn't work out, and I'll always be alone. And,
well, it certainly feels that way. But again, you want to observe your mind and ask yourself, am I catastrophizing this from this situation? And am I seeing everything as terrible because of one, maybe not a small thing, but because of one thing, I'm seeing everything else in this light. Mm-hmm. And minimization.
It's not that bad.
Right.
It's like things that you tolerate, and you're just tolerating, and your mind. This is interesting because the triggers are really subtle. It's almost like a frustration. It's not a blowout trigger. With minimization, it's almost like we're sitting on the anger, and we're just basically tolerating, and it's almost like keeping it at bay. It's not so bad. You're trying to rationalize the emotion away.
Yeah, that's.
But you're still triggered because you're inside your own mind, and you're trying to play a little trick on yourself.
Yes, and it can lead to no good, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Should statements. That's a classic one, right? We should all over ourselves.
I should have done it better.
I should have, could have, would have.
I should be doing something more. I should be married by now. I should shouldn't have slept with him, or I should have slept with him. This expectations that aren't met, that we should have done something different, or we haven't met our own harsh, high expectations. Yeah,
it's your mother's voice in there somewhere that you should, make the bed and clean your room and all that stuff.
You should be better. Like, it's very critical. And then what happens too is that we put that also on the other people, that they should have done this, or they should have done that. You should be this way. And so it's that expectations that are unmet that cause the trigger. So we have these 8: taking things personally, the black or white polarized thinking, mind reading, labeling people based on their behavior, overgeneralization, catastrophizing, minimizing, and shoulds. So how do we work with when we are triggered? How do we work with these ideas?
Well, first of all, these are not discrete, meaning we'll use combinations of these things often. And, sometimes with the same trigger, we'll use a lot of them in combination. So,
and we may find that one we use all the time, like we always take
our
things
go-to
personally.
favorite.
Yeah, our go-to, the best hits, the greatest hits, right? Your mind is playing over and over.
Yeah. Yeah, so the first step is to be a good observer of your mind. And this list certainly helps you identify what you're doing or what your mind is doing, right? Because when we're observing our mind, that means there's like 2 parts to our mind. The one that's observing and the one that's doing the actual catastrophizing.
And thinking,
Yeah. So that part that's doing the catastrophizing, we call that the ego, right? It's just the ego mind trying to make sense of the world and defend itself and all that good stuff. But the observer is the good stuff because it allows us to work with our mind. So be aware of that. And it's very subtle, but if you practice it, you'll get the hang of it. You're able to observe your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
This just came to me, and since you're the psychologist, wouldn't you say that all of these things are things that we learn as kids that we do, like when we're little kids and we don't have like a mature mind? We tend to overgeneralize. We tend to catastrophe, like the wheel broke off on our toy and it's the end of the world type of thing, right? Or the shoulds, like I should be a good boy or a good girl. And then mind reading, like expecting our parents to know what we're thinking and it's all our fault and all those things. And then labeling people as good and bad. It's kind of like a younger part of our thinking, that immature, basically, way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we need that kind of mind in the beginning because it's shorthand for how to get along in the world. And so we don't have to think through everything and decide at the deeper level. If we have a basic template, it allows us to make quick judgments and move on.
But the point I'm trying to make is that this isn't because you're wounded or hurt in some way. It's like a normal functioning of the mind.
Absolutely.
That it's not. It's just kind of the way the mind works, and why it works that way is that we needed those kind of thinking patterns early on.
Yes.
And then when we're mature, our mind just kind of runs on autopilot and goes back to those old ways of thinking. But if we can think of it as when we're, like you said, as the witness, we can think of that little mind being this younger part of like our younger thinking, or it's not really the proper way to see things anymore. Not in a judgy way, but more like, there's actually more information here that I could, or more wisdom that I can bring to these thoughts.
Well, definitely the ego is not the enemy, as a popular book says. It's simply our survival mind. It's the ego. We need that ego, and actually we need a strong ego to really make things happen for us and create the kind of life that we want. So back to how do we work that? We start by observing it and not trying to fix it, because if you try to fix it, you're getting into that should.
It's bad.
Yeah, shoulda, coulda, and all that stuff. So we're simply observing it and understanding where it's coming from. Meaning, it's coming from our past conditioning, our past, the way we saw the world, the way we had to react to the world. Fine, but at the same time, we're understanding that we are not our thoughts. This is a big realization for a lot of people, because we think we're taught to think, we're trained by our teachers and our parents that Your thoughts are who you are. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts define who you are. And a lot of us believe, right, that if I have a bad thought, oh my God, that means I'm bad. And you have to push it away. And then the mind has a mechanism which is repression, and it represses those thoughts, but it didn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. It still knows that you had that bad thought, but you repressed it. In other words, you're not looking at it. It's not conscious anymore, but it's now in the unconscious mind. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, I think I remember when I first started doing personal development, it was the first time I realized, I was like, I went through my whole life not even realizing that I was even thinking. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, know you're thinking, but you don't realize that that's not, like, it's almost like we believe that everything we think is real, right? And then so we just think it's almost like a part of us that's our identity. And
that is just obvious that that's the way it is, just because your thoughts are.
But it's almost like you don't even have that separation between the observer and the thinker. You just think you're the thinker, and that's life. And when I started knowing that my thoughts create my life, that first book I read by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, I was like, oh, I can actually change my thoughts. Like, wow, it was just the most incredible breakthrough. I know that's not what we're just saying, is that you're not just going to change it, but just the idea that we have a thought, our thoughts aren't us, is so powerful.
Right. And it also helps us deal with other people in that we understand that their thoughts are not them.
Yes.
Right? That they might be having a bad day and all that stuff, and, we don't take it personally.
Other people's triggers are not to be taken personally.
Yeah.
And even like, people get triggered all the time. People, if you're going to deal with other people, they're going to be triggered. You're going to be triggered. We basically, as human beings, trigger each other all the time. And we tend to, I think it closes people down and disconnects people. And we think, well, that person really got me mad. They triggered me, so I'm just going to avoid them, right? And then they go and they find someone else, and then the same thing happens. And you have to remember, these triggers follow you. They're not one person. Or when I was in the corporate world, I would say, well, I hate this job. My boss is triggering me all the time. And then I'd find another job, and then the same pattern would show up. So we really have to work with our mind, not work with changing the people we hang out with. And this idea, surround yourself with positive people, is such BS, because if you're not finding positive people around, maybe you need to look at yourself and look at, what's going on inside of you that's seeing that. So that's what this is about. It's really taking back the reins and the power of the world you're experiencing.
That's right. And here's the second key is, do not run away from these thoughts, emotions, feelings, whatever you're dealing with. Do not run. You want to stay with them, but you want to stay with that understanding that what you are observing is a temporary manifestation arising of your ego mind, not anything definite, not anything that defines you.
Like a storm going by, and you're sitting there watching it go by. You're not judging it. You're just waiting for it to pass, the storm to pass. And then like running from it too is, a lot of people think they have to clear the feeling or heal the feeling, put light around it and make it positive. What we want to do is just be with it, because that's running away from it. We're trying to push it away.
Yes. What it means is that we're not running away from it. We're not buying into it either, obviously, because we're creating that buffer in a sense by understanding that we're the ones observing it. It's not defining us. We're not buying into it and getting caught up in the storm of it. But we're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to heal it. We're not judging it as bad and trying to push it away. We're giving it space to breathe. Space to come on in and be expressive. That's why we're able to deal with almost any emotion that arises, any trigger, because we understand its true nature. If we get caught up in it, if we believe that we are those thoughts, then it's very difficult to deal with it, because we think, I should be better. I shouldn't think these things and all.
Or shouldn't be triggered.
Yeah, we get caught up in all that fixing stuff.
So to summarize, when you're triggered, you're probably falling into one of the 8 traps, the false assumptions. 1, taking things personally. Polarized thinking, black and white. Number 3, mind reading. You're either assuming they should read your mind or you're reading their mind, not really knowing what's happening. Labeling people based on their behavior. Overgeneralization. Catastrophizing. Minimizing, or making should statements. So when you triggered, you ask yourself, which of these 8 is my ego buying into? What are these assumptions? And then we sit with the emotion, like you said. And sitting with it doesn't mean like sitting on a couch and having it sit next to you, but just allow it to be there without pushing it away. And believe it or not, people think it can't be that simple, but the act of pushing it away is what our conditioning will want us to do. Our ego will want to push it away. That's why it makes up all these stories and it kind of jumps to these conclusions. And what we want to do is drop the story and just let that feeling just be there without trying to defend it. And what will happen is that somewhere inside of you, that wisdom that's watching will infuse you with some insight. And it'll feel like the clouds have parted, the storm has passed, because you'll see things from a different perspective. And you won't be falling back into the trap of just defending again. Because if you just defend it, you're basically agreeing with these assumptions that they're true. You're saying, yes, it is personal, or yes, that person is bad, or yes, overgeneralization is correct, or I should be better. And so if you're not allowing yourself to be with that emotion without judgment, you're giving into that assumption, and then that pattern will take you to the next thing that bugs you, that doesn't go smoothly in your life.
Yes. So try it next time you're triggered, whether it's at work and dating and your marriage and driving. A lot of people, a lot of us, not me, get triggered when driving, right? People cut you off or something happens and you go into that kind of overdrive of emotion.
But it really will give you some freedom and that space to know who you really are, that you're not those things, that the world isn't out to get you. And you'll start to see the world from a more pure, clarified perspective. And that's the place where you can really connect with other people. It's going to allow your heart to open when you're on dates or in relationships. And it's going to lead you to true love.
All right. We hope to see you in New York in the spring.
And remember, loveattractiontest.com. Check it out and take your test. See how ready you are for love and get your consult with Teresa as soon as possible while they're still available. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Creative Love Radio.
Take care.
You've been listening to Creative Love Radio with Debbie and Dr. Rob. For more information, visit us on our website at creativelove.com.